Welcome to MRE, your source for apocalyptic Christianity. We've made a few changes to the show, as you may have noticed. We have a shorter intro, got a new backdrop here, got a new haircut, and I'm also wearing pants. Normally I'm wearing shorts, so I thought I'd mix it up today and just put actual pants on. However, I am still committed to making poorly edited videos, so we will continue in that. Now, some of you may like the change or the changes. Perhaps you are getting tired of the same old format and maybe you welcome a new look. Other people may miss the old chalkboard and the fluorescent lighting, or most likely you couldn't care less about the change altogether, right? Now, Jesus says this about him in Hebrews chapter 13. It says that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus doesn't change. Now, if you like stability and security, you're going to love Jesus. He's a rock. He's solid and immovable. And we all want stability and security. And just because someone is adventurous or spontaneous doesn't mean that they don't desire stability and security. I know this because no matter how random or nomadic or sporadic a person may be, ask them to give you their phone and all of their passwords and see what their response is. See, we all have things that we hold tightly to that we don't want to let go of. Now, why is that? Well, we all want some form of stability and security in our lives. Now, there's always some part of whom we are or what we believe or how we think that we don't want to change because it gives us a sense of security. Now, think of something that you are really into or something that you're really known for. Like maybe you're the car guy, or you're a horse girl, or you're a gym rat, or you're a bookworm. And then all of a sudden, God asks you to sell all of your cars and get rid of your horses, or stop working out, and you need to watch more TV and read less books. Now there's going to be some pushback because losing that thing, it feels like you're losing a part of who you are. Expression, I believe I remember my father sharing at some point, is the only person that likes change is a wet baby. But even babies throw a fit while you're changing them half the time, don't they? And it's not until you're all done that they realize, oh, this actually does feel a little bit better. And then they stop fussing. Now in Genesis, we have the story of a guy named Joseph, who you probably heard. He was sold into slavery by his brothers, something that I think we've all wanted to do with a sibling at one point or another. And then the story concludes with Joseph saying this in Genesis chapter 50. It says that you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save lives of many people. Now going from a wealthy free man to a slave, that was a pretty dramatic change for Joseph. Certainly not a welcomed one at the time. But without a dramatic change in his life, the lives of thousands, perhaps even millions of people would have ultimately been lost. So in the end, would you say it was a good thing that Joseph experienced that change of scenery and lifestyle? Well, I think we all would, knowing the end result. Now, this isn't intended to bring up the debate of situational ethics or does the end justify the means, but just simply to remind us that change is a good thing. Even if it seems like a bad thing from every angle, it's quite possibly ultimately a good thing. Because things changing is the only way that we can change. Left to your own devices, you won't get any better. You won't become more like Jesus. You and I need to have obstacles that block our path and force us sometimes to change our direction. Now, Jesus says this about himself in Luke chapter 20. He says that everyone who stumbles over that stone, he's that stone he's talking about, everyone who stumbles over that stone will be broken to pieces, and it will crush anyone it falls on. Now, Jesus is saying that he's a rock like that. You have a choice. You can stumble over him and be broken, because that's the first thing that Jesus will do is break down the you that you have created, all those things that you hold tightly to that give you stability and security. And stumbling over Jesus and seeing your brokenness allows him to piece you back together the way that he wants to. Or he can fall on you and crush you completely. And I believe this refers to those people who don't ultimately accept Jesus as the Messiah. Either way, your life will be changed because of Jesus. But again, no one really likes change, do we? It messes with us, even if we know that it's a good thing. In the book of Jonah, God said he was going to destroy this evil city called Nineveh. And so he tells Jonah, go tell the people to repent. And he did. But when the people repented, God changed his mind about destroying him. And says this in Jonah chapter 4, that this change of plans greatly upset Jonah, and he became very angry. Great response, Jonah, right? You see, it doesn't matter what kind of change it is, there's always going to be someone who isn't happy about it. Perhaps when you got saved, there were some friends or some family members that weren't very happy about it. We've all certainly heard those stories if we haven't experienced it personally. And it's a good chance that some people don't think that it's good. And there are bad changes, like being sold into slavery, but turns out it was ultimately a good thing. The trouble with change is that we don't really know the outcome that it's going to cause. And that bothers us because, again, we want stability and security. But while we are here on this earth, we will never really be safe and secure. This world is going to be problematic and changing the whole time that we are here. This isn't a safe place to be. It's not a secure place to be. So when we latch onto something in this world to give us a sense of stability and security, I believe that God often puts obstacles in our path that force us to address these false senses of stability and security. Even if that thing you're holding on to is an alleged good thing, he doesn't want us holding on to anything in this world. In Isaiah 43, God lists a whole bunch of amazing things that he's done, but then he kind of finishes by saying this. Verse 18, but forget all of that. It is nothing compared to what I'm going to do, for I'm about to do something new. See, that's God. God is constantly doing something new. He never changes, but he is always changing things around us. It's the only way to keep us from getting stuck in a rut. Some of you need to paint your kitchen or just rearrange the furniture in your house for no other reason than it's something different. Mixing things up, it forces you to see things differently and interact with things differently. It's still your house, but it will change the way that you feel about it. One of the biggest challenges to living in the same place your whole life and never traveling, or let's say reading the same translation of the Bible and singing the same songs you've always sung, the big obstacle of repeating the same thing over and over is it creates a false sense of stability and security that prevents you from wanting to change or experiencing something new. And you and I need to change. Change shocks us into attention and it focuses us to see things in a new light. And most of the change we resist, honestly, is just personal preference. But the only way that we grow, mature, or change is really by mixing things up, being forced out of our comfort zone. Because when we are uncomfortable, we start looking around for something solid to hold on to. And that's when Jesus kind of pops his head out from behind that obstacle, if you will, and he says, here, take my hand, hold on to me. And much of the time, we don't do that. We find something easier to grab onto that gives us another false sense of stability and security. But soon, some other obstacle comes our way and forces us to consider some changes. And Jesus pops his head out again and reaches his hand out and says, take my hand, hold on to me. So when something changes in your life, or there are changes, be it a good thing or a bad thing, take a moment to pause and look for God veiled in that obstacle. He may not have created the obstacle, but he is working in the middle of it nonetheless. And he wants you to change course and take a fresh grip of his hand.